Hi there. Still on what we have been discussing on IUPAC nomenclature of inorganic compound. This time around we are going to concentrate on naming acids. We also go further to talk about naming ions. When we say acid, what is an acid? An acid is simply a substance that produces hydrozonium ion as the only positive ion when dissolved in water. So an acid is a substance that produces hydrozonium ion as the only positive ion when dissolved in water. Okay, so an acid produces what? Hydrozonium ion as the only positive ion when dissolved in water. When we mean by hydrozonium ion, we are talking about hydrogen ion as the only positive ion. The rest ions in an acid are usually what? Negative ions. Okay, let's take a look at some examples of acid and how their names are called using the IUPAC convention. So we have acid like HNO3. Okay, HNO3. Now remember we said in trying to name a compound using the IUPAC convention, it is important that we take note of the rules. And rule number 1 is the sum of oxidation state of elements in a compound is equal to 0. We can have HNO3 equals 0. So we simply make the central element as subject of the formula. So here we have the oxidation state of hydrogen. Of course, we said is +1 plus nitrogen, which is our central element, plus -2 times 3 equals 0. Remember we said the oxidation state of oxygen is usually -2 except in peroxide. Okay, so we have +1 plus n plus bracket -6 is equals 0. So by the time you make n the subject of the formula, we'll have something relating to this. N is equal to 0, 0 plus 6 minus 1. So n is equal to plus 5. So the oxidation state of nitrogen in HNO3 is simply written as +5. So the name of the acid is called trioxonitrate 5 acid. Okay, looking at this example, we can clearly see that in naming acid, it is not important or it is not necessary for us to name the hydrogen because it is already indicated that it is acid. An acid, as we defined earlier, is any substance that produces hydrogen ion as the only positive ion when dissolved in water. So it will not be necessary for us to name the hydrogen in the beginning of the name. So we end the name with acid, showing the presence of hydrogen. So anytime you have the presence of hydrogen in a compound, the compound has some characteristics of an acid, or the compound simply possesses acidic properties. So we have HNO3 pronounced as trioxonitrate 5, with the tri indicating 3 oxygen atoms. Okay, now let's have another example of a compound of an acid as H2SO4, okay, equal to 0. So we have +1 here, +1 multiplied by 2, plus S, which is sulfur, as our central element, -2 multiplied by 4 equals 0. So we have +2 here, plus S, plus bracket -8 equals 0. So we have, making S the subject of the formula, we have S is equal to 0 plus 8 minus 2. So S is equal to +6. So the name of the compound or the acid can be called tetra oxo sulfate 6 acid. Wow, that is very interesting. So acid are named by ending their name with the word acid. So there will not be any need of writing hydrogen, because the presence of hydrogen in a compound automatically makes the compound to be called an acid. So there will not be any need for us to write hydrogen in naming acid. Now let's talk about another example of an acid, which is H3PO4, okay, equal to 0. So H3PO4, we have plus 1 multiplied by 3 plus P. Of course, P here is the central atom, which is what to make as our subject of the formula. So we have plus bracket minus 2 times 4 equals 0. So we have P is equal to 0 plus 8 minus 3. So P is equal to plus 5. So the name of this acid is tetra oxo phosphate. Okay, phosphate 5 acid. Okay, so that is the name of this acid. Now that is how acids are named, ending their name with the word acid. Having talked about that, let's look at few examples on ions and how ions are named. Of course, ions are named ending their names with the word ions. Now let's take a look at a common example of ion. A common example of ion is SO4 2 minus equal to minus 2. Remember when we talked about set of rules in naming compound, we said in naming compound, the sum of oxidation state of ions is equal to the charge. So in this case, the charge on this ion is minus 2. So we make S the subject of the formula. So we have S plus minus 2 multiplied by 4 is equal to minus 2. So S minus 8 is equal to minus 2. So making S the subject of the formula, we have S is equal to minus 2 plus 8. Therefore, S is equal to plus 6. So we can simply name this ion as tetra oxo sulfate 6 ion. That is very interesting and very, very simple. Now let's take a look at the last ion that we are going to consider today. The last ion we are going to consider today is ClO3 equal to minus 1. So we have Cl as our subject of the formula plus bracket minus 2 times 3 is equal to minus 1. We have Cl plus bracket minus 6 equal to minus 1. Cl is equal to minus 1 plus 6. Therefore, Cl is equal to plus 5. So we can simply name this ion as trioxo chlorate 5 ion. So these are some of the examples of acid and ions and how they can be named using the IUPAC convention. With this, we've come to the end of this class.